What I thought could be one of the best days of my life quickly turned into one of the most disappointing ones I've ever experienced. Imagine dedicating 8 relentless months and millions of dollars for the ultimate racing challenge, competing in both the Indianapolis 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day, only for it to end up an absolute flop. Kyle Larson was set to make history, but when Mother Nature called with rain and delayed the Indy 500, Larson faced a gut-wrenching choice: finish the Indy 500 and miss the start of the Coca-Cola 600, or abandon the Indy dream midway. He chose to stay, missing the start in Charlotte, and now his entire championship season hangs in the balance. Fans are outraged, the media is buzzing, and Larson is left pleading for a waiver to keep his title hopes alive. How do you solve a problem like this? Is there no way out? By the way, if you're still not following our channel, come on now. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. NASCAR culture needs your support. Knowing Kyle Larson and his insatiable drive for excellence, fans and critics weren't surprised when he set his sights on the extraordinary challenge of competing in the Indianapolis 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. An ambitious plan, known as the Memorial Day Double, that would finally cement his name in the NASCAR Wall of Legends. You see, only a handful of drivers have ever attempted this challenge, including Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch. Stewart attempted it in 1999 and 2001, finishing both races each time, and Busch followed suit in 2014. However, none managed to win both races, highlighting just how difficult this would be. But recognizing Larson's extraordinary talent and the potential historic significance of his double attempt, NASCAR went to great lengths to support him. We're going to work closely with the folks at Speedway Motorsports, our TV broadcast partners, and the folks at Hendrick Motorsports to do everything we can to make sure that Kyle can get there within reason, stated NASCAR's Elton Sawyer. The logistics for Kyle Larson's Memorial Day Double were incredibly detailed and coordinated. Larson was set to start his day with the Indianapolis 500, scheduled to begin at 12:45 p.m. Eastern Time, after which he would board a helicopter for a quick flight to a nearby airstrip, where a private jet awaited to whisk him to Concord, North Carolina. Upon arrival, another helicopter would transport him directly to Charlotte Motor Speedway, aiming for him to make the start of the Coca-Cola 600, NASCAR's longest race, beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The entire process, from leaving Indianapolis to arriving in Charlotte, would have taken around 90 minutes, a tight window demanding flawless execution. And so with all that was at stake, Larson's preparations had to be rigorous and thorough. The training involved wasn't only physical conditioning, but mental conditioning to handle the stress. But nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. Race day at Indy began with promise, but soon dark clouds and heavy rain delayed the start. Larson, who had qualified 5th, faced immense pressure. Despite leading laps and showing his prowess, a road pit penalty on lap 131 cost him crucial time. But he was determined and worked tirelessly to regain his position. He fought back from the penalty, and his efforts paid off as he managed to climb back to the lead lap, ultimately finishing 18th. As soon as the Indianapolis 500 concluded, around 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time, Larson's intense race against time began. The moment he crossed the finish line, Larson's focus shifted from the grueling 500 miles he had just completed to the equally demanding challenge that lay ahead. He darted towards a waiting black SUV parked on pit road, flanked by key Hendrick Motorsports executives. The SUV sped through the infield of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, carrying Larson to a helicopter ready for immediate departure. As the helicopter blades whirred to life, Larson's heart pounded in sync with its thumping. He had no time to process the exhaustion or the mixed emotions from the Indy 500. The stakes were too high, and the clock was ticking relentlessly. The helicopter lifted off, slicing through the evening sky towards a private jet waiting in Indianapolis Airport. Every second felt like an eternity. Upon landing, Larson swiftly boarded the jet. The engines roared to life, and within moments, they were airborne, racing towards Concord Regional Airport, just a few miles from Charlotte Motor Speedway. The flight, though only about an hour long, felt endless. Landing at Concord, he was immediately transferred to another helicopter, the final leg of his frenzied journey. The helicopter touched down at Charlotte Motor Speedway at 9:13 p.m. Eastern Time. His heart sank as he saw the dark, rain-soaked track. The rain had arrived before him, and the race was already under a red flag due to the weather conditions. He was minutes too late. Apparently, Justin Algier had already started the race in Larson's place. The decision was unavoidable given the circumstances, but it didn't lessen the sting of the disappointment. Larson watched helplessly as the track, now slick and unfit for racing, brought all activity to a standstill. He felt completely helpless. He had prepared for months, invested everything, and yet nature's unpredictability had undone it all. "We could see the weather was coming," he said, "and I was just hoping it was going to get there before halfway so that the race wouldn't be official." As he stood there, watching the rain continue to fall, his shoulders slumped slightly. The track drying efforts seemed promising at first, with his mood lifting as the surface appeared nearly ready. My mood kind of swung to finally being happy. I was just kind of getting ready to go. I knew we had 150 laps left in the race, and I knew I would have plenty of time to get to the front. I knew my race car was going to be fast. But just as quickly, his hopes were dashed when officials declared the race complete. I was just praying for an hour or more of rain and it all would have been fine, but it just didn't end up that way. The Coca-Cola 600 had been within his grasp. He had traveled far, fought so hard, and yet couldn't even start the race. The reactions to Kyle Larson's double attempt were as varied as they were intense. Fans and racing enthusiasts took to social media and forums to express their support and frustration. Many admired Larson's ambition and determination. It's not every day you see a driver willing to take on such a monumental challenge. Others, however, were critical of his decision to stay at the Indy 500, feeling he should have prioritized the Coca-Cola 600 and his NASCAR commitments. He let down his team and fans who were counting on him, a detractor argued. NASCAR officials were divided, but Larson himself was the most devastated. He took to Twitter the morning after the races and released a heartfelt letter, expressing deep disappointment and a sense of having let people down. Despite the setbacks, he was determined to refocus and chase his second NASCAR Cup championship. But this is where the real controversy begins. You see, the waiver controversy surrounding Larson's eligibility for the championship became a hot topic. The waiver policy, introduced in 2014, was initially intended for medical exceptions, allowing drivers to remain playoff eligible despite missing races due to injuries or illnesses. Over time, the policy expanded to cover various exceptional circumstances. Larson needed a waiver because he did not start the Coca-Cola 600 due to his delayed arrival from the rain-soaked Indianapolis 500. The NASCAR rulebook states, unless otherwise authorized by NASCAR, drivers and team owners must start all championship events of the current season to be eligible for the playoffs. The controversy over Larson's waiver centered on the unprecedented nature of his double attempt and the significant promotion it brought to the sport. Supporters, including his team owner Rick, argued that Larson's effort to compete in both races should be recognized and rewarded. Kyle Larson helped move the sport forward in a fashion never seen before, Hendrick stated. Critics, however, pointed to the strict rules requiring drivers to start every race to be playoff eligible. They argued that making an exception for Larson could set a problematic precedent. If we bend the rules for one, where do we draw the line? Well, it's not like the waiver hadn't been granted for other non-explicitly stated reasons. For example, Matt Kenseth received one in 2020 after replacing Larson at Chip Ganassi Racing. Chase Elliott was granted waivers after a snowboarding accident and a suspension, and Eric Jones received a waiver after an injury at Talladega. Larson's situation was unique because it wasn't due to an injury or suspension, but because of his attempt to complete the Memorial Day double. The decision to grant Larson a waiver involved extensive internal discussions within NASCAR. "We didn't take it lightly," said Elton Sawyer, NASCAR's Senior Vice President of Competition. "There was a lot of discussion internally. We ultimately landed at giving Kyle a waiver. To not have Kyle Larson in our playoff and give fans the opportunity to see him race for a championship at the end of the day didn't feel like that's the right decision for us to make," Sawyer explained. NASCAR's decision to grant the waiver was influenced by the fact that Larson made every effort to reach Charlotte in time, despite the inclement weather. In the end, NASCAR granted Larson the waiver, allowing him to continue his pursuit of the championship. But what do you think? Did he deserve the waiver or not? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and like and subscribe for more content from NASCAR culture.